we'll begin with praise and Shakyamuni Buddha, which is on page 3. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the third destroyer.
Judah from the Sakya clan. Prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the good conduct. Fully awakened one, destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subduer from the Sakya clan. I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sagata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, subduer from the Sakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When the Supreme One, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. In the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. The supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Thus be like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Saviour having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean. To you, the one gone to thusness, I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime reality, to the tongue that pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts. To you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, every devout homage to all worthy of respect, bound with bodies as many as all, in all respects. The Supreme Faith, I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, sickness and death.
Page 15. The heart is the depiction of wisdom sutra. I prostrate. to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment, in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, giving known as the truth since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the venerable Sharadvatiputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised as spoken by the Bhagavan.
Page 23. Offering a long mandala to request the teachings.
Loi Tambole no Balancho Sandramene Nidan Le Pangaya Dangaya Yende Dalam Jodo Dramin Yendan Dramin Yeta Lempoche Revo Basanje Jeje Ba Mama Pai Colorim Boje, Noborim Boje, Zamorim Boje, Lamporim Boje, Lamporim Boje, Tachorim Boje, Maporim Boje, Tejembaye Pumba, Nyema Tewama, Luma Kama, Netoma Dupama Nansama Dujama Nimatawa Rinpoche Do Chosen Namba Jeve Jenze Usula Tambi Benjo Bunson Soba Mata Ewa Zan Ye Do Ma De Da Jenje Zawa Da Jivash Nande Lama Damba Nanda Jeva De Ya Lama Lo San To Je Chan Chenpo Shemane Degba Jembe Zanje Lama Jive Yende Shenga Owash Tuje De Dende Jezosh Jan Da Zo Jova Manje Da Da Nyembe Senje Da Ozewa Jembe Wane Jenje La Do So this thing this. No. Just like that. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, come. Oh yeah. No. This put behind. Yeah, big. Yeah. Similar thing. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah. Now thank you. But here. Like that. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Amendela Kanya Kayami.
Page 27.
Zonje Judan Zaji Janala Chanjo Bado Dani Jasumje Dagi Chujin Kive Sona Dola Benje Sanje Dubara Sho Sanje Judan Soji Chana Jo Bado Dani Jasumje Dagi Chujin Kive Sona Dola Benje Sanje Dubara Sho Sanje Chodan Soji Chonan Janjo Bado Dani Jas Dagi Chujin Jive Sonam Ji Dola Pinji Sanje Dubara Shu Kange de Nyesave Dawadan Jebawani de Meshine Denzeve Kodan de la Chadel Tony Jeson de Jobela Shijis de Kanji Dende Chanabe Madi de Jazola Zoa de Zoshin de Lundush Pande the Lamara Maji, Daki Jurbe Medijone, Gonichebe, Gonijizon. Gozondo Jengo de Dozos. Other Nanzo Lodi Yanga, Tinda took you from the Tangaras. Tinda Chemixe. Alamrim Toleada, get a shake you from the Give us some young Chanazo. Ning Razota. Someone named the Alfazi. Drilling Suristan to Chichumadi. Give us some much there is wrong around the meal within top sand in this chumadi. Give us some more. Again, we meet in this class with the intention to study the Lam Rim. And we are very fortunate in that regard, very fortunate. And we can also discuss about the Lamrim, and in that regard, being human and being able to do that, how fortunate.
다든다 회진 줍시 정아 지요래라 대체가 네 대랑조 다래 저주 유총당 유정이고 저 시도해셔라 이내다 저 유정당 유총을 고 유정당 유총부 투모에 제제 도적으로 왔다디 꾸노라라레기요로 최 먼저 최디 최를 좀서 꾸노디 삼바 자침부 chanjusimji kulonsina tegwachimbe chuldo yo chadangdo adangbu kulong gomdesji gyawosro.
So now we're going to run these teachings for 14 or 15 weeks, and mostly we will be focusing amongst the three scopes of practitioner on the initial and middling scopes. Of course, there is the vast scope as well, and really what type of motivation it is that sets the scope, right? So having said that, if your motivation is bodhicitta, altruism, then it becomes the practice of the great vehicle. And furthermore, whether something is dharma or not dharma depends on one's motivation. So I thought we'd reflect on the motivation.
직수수 삼바상보와
맞아요.
삼바상보 지토가다 능어런저다 삼바상보스나다 능어런저 뭐 소원할래 요요 밀려야지 직 팬도 가져 지도도치다 미나를 속바이나를 팬도 가져 지도도치치 대치야치 되는 최대 년바당 로정치와다 대치야데 아시엔라 팬바 바시고 도야게 치도이 대치등에 아니 진다티게 야고시니 로바 아니 삼로 야고시 단토가 치기 삼배 오다 군로 야고시 곰잡시 아스로.
So what is that motivation? The motivation we should have for attending these teachings in the Lamrim is that of the kind heart. We want to motivate that we have a very well-intentioned and kind heart, that feeling. So therefore, that feeling of kind heart is when you have a thought just to benefit society and to benefit yourself. So that kind-hearted intention is really it. So if you can adopt that kind-hearted intention just with only others in mind, the benefiting intention, and in that regard to listen, to study to the teaching, to listen, to reflect on the teaching, that would be a good motive. Let's sit and motivate.
Oh, yeah, the Tamjashi, the day, Samba, Shimbing, Samba. 강의 가르치는 다 르당게 삼네 담자시는데 뒤에 야고도 와디 담 개침물에 놨어.
Yes. Now, one should make the resolve or intention, whatever difficulties one faces, not to lose that kind heart, not to lose the benefiting intention. That's very important.
뭐야 다 가고 마줄에 텐데 삼번이 왜좀 뭐지 가고 그러.
Now rejoice, think how wonderful now my mind has become very potent, very powerful. How wonderful.
뭐야 다운도 breathing exercise dance show 스 트랜스페이션 정말 싱그러.
Yes.
우리는 저 당파 당니 파단데 근데 와다 아주 곰다 참 이거 진짜 주름 뭐 체라 한디 바로라다 나도야 제수스스는 강에로다 정말로다 근데 여러와다 두수 상황파 탄성 태라 옥수 텐디장을요 스스스 분날 니버사워라실레 파 텐도도 오다 두수 직뉴슈당다 가라이나 강에로 가라이나 두수 파 탄성 텐체네 텐디가 셈디디가 네바체 옥수 당파 담에 간라 네비시메가네 어도스티스 곰네 잡셔서
Now we'll do some breathing exercise. I'm sure you all are familiar with it. Breathing in and out. When you breathe out, imagine that all your stress and worry is going out. You know, sometimes sitting in the class, it's quite long. So whatever mental thoughts you have, imagine when you release the breath, when you exhale, they're going out. And when you breathe in, then your mind is endowed with a new potency. So in that light, then, just trying to place the mind on the breath.
이네 옥투 단파도 시험시네 장가 잡는 장가 숨채고 숨제야 참대 시험 다다와 되거나 심시야 나쳐 숨죠 심지 다다와 가나샤 어두스 지시콤데스잖아.
Now, with the inhalations and exhalations, being aware of those breaths, we're going to count them. So in and out, and in and out, and in and out, 3 times, and then 3 cycles of that. So 3 cycles of 3, then take a break, rest your mind. Then do the same again, do 5 cycles of 3 times. And then try to rest the mind in the present moment.
다 저런스나 당서 취재 직학스지로 취재 직학스지 기한데 암전이네 요인자 스튜디오 소소 심 수지네다 가르치기도 되게 심 다다와 간다 샤도나 아니 녀야데 야고체 아니 뒤중간서 미망고지 nangbe zindala do kale khaji do nyen shinge marwa
Okay.
제가 그 쌤들 다다 가르치기도 쌤들 어다데 시기 요소래요 어다데 가르치기도 양양스 네 녀야 되가다 녀야게 지금 심샤도 비나 아니 디 롭존 냠바님도라 수수 쌤랑 야소태야 되는데 용거 심으시 다 산이나니 가르치고래 이제 가르치고래 쌤들만 오여라 텔도나 아니 암저를 쳐요 그거에서를 지 그거야 쌤 제가 봐도 어디 가서 갈래 가고요 라디오 다 지산디 다리 쌤디하고 근데 수보다 님도라 녀야 되가는 삼바가서 샤도도 샤베이나 아니 수수 쌤 배자딩에야래 편도치 아니 년사회질이야 예수 예수 티에야 돼 용어로
So for the rest of the hour we have for this class, it's very good if one can listen and listen well, meaning that the mind is placed in the present moment. So you are listening to what is being said. Often people who come to Buddha Dharma classes don't have the skill of being able to listen, meaning that, if you are able to stay in the present moment and reflect, so now this is being said, that is good, rather than you might, and then in that sense, you're listening and studying at the same time. There's a connect there. Rather that if you're revolving, what will I do tomorrow? What will I do the next day? Your body might be here, but the listening won't go so well. That could be like 50-50. So in that sense, the benefits of listening and staying present together with the mind and body connected in that sense is very good.
다데 베자디밍 창죽 람지림 창춥시기도 창춥시 창다 베전데지 치고로 간저 단다 다 교영그릭도 들어와 녀몽그릭도 창 깔래잡 장장장 베전친 베나다 말아서 수수수수 따지 로다지 게 곰시 뭐 알레 게저 틱둑자지 로 셰야지레 곰시 차잖아 주어다 가보도 저선 데라 다 깔래 데스 잡로네 라과데 죽도 자레 콘도레 나제레 드즈르도다 곰시로 직 차자데 비티바 메오사 깔래요 인자 데라 깔래 데스 잡네 네 디바 장지 디바 장지 디바 메오스 와 장서와 되게 네 녀몽보다 시제 디와파 방왕 매버서 될 장제 춥스도 시자 연대 쳔제다 쳔바 연대 제외 연대 되게체 장서와 되 쳔배 연대체 지선 쳔제 뉴스무 아니 방도의 산제지 공방의 장죽다 문에의 산제지 공방의 임버와다 다 람지렘바 라면데 어딜라 드베 람지렘바 다 델라야 아니 아주 심디 델라야 도당그림바디 시비 다 두스리다 장죽라의 산제지 공방게네 산제주게네 장죽 장죽스드네 다 깔레 잡제로와 교영그리도게 상호파 매워스 디켐베 차고라 네 춥서와디다 아니 지 가서래다 연대기 릭타제 중앙와 인상 장줍체 다디 산제기 방도 타두들 방바당 독배 방도가 연대의 시에로 네 토바치베 람게 렘바스데다 딜라 통마 로당 칸데 이메디 얘기 어디 셰기었다 낭베기 추게 로당로데다 시림로데 어두 셰기여와
Nice. So let's look at the title of this series of classes, Chanchu Lamgi Rimbar in Tibetan. So what we have is Changchup. The first part of the Bodhi, the word Changchup. Chang means that we have to put effort in this first part, means that we have to purify the faults. We have to purify the faults, the faulty aspects of mind. So that's quite difficult for us. Difficult for us to do, so therefore we have to put great effort to purify the faults. For example, if someone is accustomed to using bad speech, or if someone says something bad to you, these afflictions, it's very difficult once we're habituated with them, anger, hatred, pride, to immediately remove them. So on the first part, getting rid of these negativities, these invalid states of minds, the afflictions, and their subtler level, the obscurations, that takes great effort. So that's the first part of the twofold chum chup, or the word bodhi, coining the enlightened phrase. And chup means when you're actualizing the knowledge as far as it can be actualized, these qualities of Kimbe omniscience, of love, of power. In short, the qualities of a Buddha. So we're actualizing these good qualities on the one hand and purifying non-virtuous afflictions on the other. So then, really, Lam Rim, what does that mean? Lam Rim are the graduated stages we sequentially train in to bring about or to manifest that Buddhahood we've just talked about. And to do that takes great effort. So on the one hand, we're unknowing what to abandon in terms of the faults and what to adopt in terms of the knowledge and good qualities in sequence, therefore Chanjuki Lam.
Chanju Lamrin Chemo subject and Lamrin do Nimdola. Nimdo, Dosha, Nance, Rata to the teaching neta. Chonzole Pendoyan or Gene, Maraya Kumshi Chachi to Yinsra. Tazo, Marale Pendo Chachi in that.
So, in line with the, studying this sequential path to enlightenment, these steps, I thought we'd go through the topic outlines, the subject outlines, because it will benefit you, but it will also benefit me. It'll benefit me because I get habituated with it, and I'm used to it.
And Lamrim Dudu.
Lamrim Dudu, yeah. And the text we're studying is, unless you're aware, the Hymn of Experience by Lama Tsongkhapa. Does everyone have a copy of that? We should actually.
Everyone have? And then we restart later. Okay. And then after we restart together.
In future classes, it's very good because it's not long if we recite the whole thing together once.
Chanju Lamji Material, there's sure subject that's all dinner to do. Chu Kung Zumba, Demba, the Ober Chewa Dembas, Dangal Kuajeva, Church Chewa Dembas. Chewani the Children Chewas, Tambango Lomash that way in Bas. That subject shitty. Dinner, that's how much dinner to do your restaurant.
Now, first, there are these 4 general outlines that cover the whole of the Lamrim text. So these 4 are as follows. The first one is showing the greatness of the author in order to establish the authentic origin of the teaching. The second general outline is the greatness of the teaching to show respect for the instructions. Understanding how great the teaching is, because that the instructions are valid. Thirdly, how to listen to and explain the teachings, and finally, how to lead students with the actual instructions.
Did catch more about Chu Kung Zuma, the over Chewat said, down around to you, tapped over the tapped on Bob and me to see me, Dagda Chance. Titan enemy to get a chamboyna, tapped in your load. Oh, this is that teaching.
That first point is very important, isn't it? Showing the greatness of the author in order to establish the authentic origin of the teaching. Because before we read a book, we want to know about the author, isn't it? And if the author's famous, we're more likely to read that book and validate it.
Tatambo Tomba Jumden there, that Dembe Tagbo, Namba Sanjeva said, Zambuling de la Namba Sanjeva, Tanda Tinkiranzo, Namba Laya de Su, Toma Su. There is no Tomba Jumden there, and Chilu don't took Yag and Olayata, and the Chilo Gomazu Conla, and a tea conla, Jumden de Sinij. That day, Luju Chiranzo, Tanda, the Tinker Lamning says, Tinker Lamning. Oh, the law, Tomajum de Luju, the law, 디 하고 요라다 저 된대래 좀 된대 당보 제베세체 아니다 저도 가서 상승다 아니 거에 자발하다 인구매가시 학바들다 디지세야 돼 심내 연구도 메시 벤조당 강바당 도로당 담년달의 연구면도 쓰지 아니 심그 디지도야라 좀 된대 랑게 깔래 잡지 다도 산제지 고마토 아니 되네 당당한서 당한서 최퇴야게 돼 통마딜라네 좀 된대지 콜을 무슨 거라 저 당연히 좀 된대지 제바데 저랑서 로요나 단다 띵가람니 로요나 또 맞는데 제바데 뛰고시 저랑서 딜로 메니나 딜로나 야고요 봐 딜로 좀 된대지 아니 좀 된대 다저 칸데 템버레라위나 콜로숨로 콜로 당부 템버시 중고 콜로니바 다 셔러닝부 등고도 셔러닝부 다 단다 아니 저 단당한 저기 저 냠네 람림디 저디 아니 시진이 돈에 마시기 여러
니페디라
맨나 셔러닝부 뭐스동니셰 지잡라 시진이 되나라 아니 되게 퇴마셰제 아니 딜라야다 저와 니 지 통원바도 보게 세로 근데 용거 따도서 시진 람지름 바디게데 뭐스동바니 때 슈르 람지름 바
람로
템바 인장 좀 된대지 베나 콜로 파월송으로는 콜로 타마치 총고를 맞숨 거다 좀 되지 숭배 최대 도당 아니래로 동아니 그 파르침에 대과 되부도지 대과시 대과를 많이 어디 최 숭바보디 최된대지 숭바래 다데 제바딩에 마음로 먹어시 지랑서 좀 된대 제바디 지랑서 띵걸람니 로 여나다 디버체 와 로메나 디로드나 야고요래로
Ganda gisla di tinggal lamni sana.
Old path, white clouds.
Oh, okay. Sorry, old path, white clouds. Sorry, I didn't know that one. Yeah. So now, okay. So validating, coming back to, showing the greatness of the author in order to establish the authentic origin of the teaching. Well, of course, tracing back to. We always say, oh, Buddhist, Buddhist, Buddhist. What's a Buddhist? What does a Buddhist do? Well, of course, that's coming from the teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni, who appeared historically on this earth 2,600 years ago. And we know, Geshe mentioned if you've read this Old Path, White Clouds, the story of the Buddha, certainly it's good if you've read it. If you haven't, one should do so. How Buddha was born in a royal lineage. But seeing the vapidity, the lack of essence of that royal lineage, that, happiness didn't come from entertainments, happiness didn't come from having a reputation, happiness didn't come from fame. He saw the lack of essence of cyclic existence, and he went forth from that. He wanted to leave that. Because he wanted to find a type of happiness that is free of suffering, a more long-term mental and physical well-being. And in order to do that, he put in tremendous effort. And having put in that tremendous effort, he then taught what we know are the Four Truths, the Four Noble Truths. Now, of course, reading about the certain deeds that Buddha did in sequence is in the text that Geshe just mentioned, these 12 deeds. If one has already read it, fantastic. If not, please read it and acquaint yourselves with the story of Buddha. So in short, Lord Buddha taught 3 turnings of the wheel, or let's say 3 sequences of teachings, the first of which was the Four Noble Truths. The second is the teaching of the Heart Sutra, the genre of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. And then a third set. But really what we're studying here comes from the second turning of the wheel. The teachings on wisdom, the teachings on the perfections of wisdom, on emptiness, which were directly taught at that second turning of the wheel, and what was indirectly or implicitly taught were these path things, these like the clear ornament of realization, the methods and so forth. In short, we can say that Lord Buddha taught Sutra and Tantra. The perfection vehicle was the cause, and the Tantric vehicle was the result of the resultant state of Buddhahood. Yeah.
다디네 아니 당일 두세잖아. 자갈라 다 템바 배단을 벌어 됐 중요 당일 티슈 모시. 아니 별라 Nangba Sanjay Temba Tawa Tibetan Buddhism Sikdo Chance, de
No.
Kati. De ni Turab to Benanda, Java Sonzen Gambo Kaplani, that Gozu Borwa, Turab Jeve on the one, Jawatism de Zing. So the Gozu said that the Turab to Benane Gozu, Turab to Benane and Nangbe Tar. That ni Tamara Shida. Kenji Shivazo Dang, and Lumim Pema Sambo, Guru Machin, the Jaga, Nalende, Pindida, Chimbura Taina, Zug, because of the Pelia, that Temba Toma, Unyesa de Turodumena, Kozugurela, not the Sevachazare.
No. So then, leaving aside the Indian transmission for the minute, let's look at Tibetan Buddhism, because that's contemporary for us. We're always saying Tibetan Buddhism. So that would have begun in the 7th century with the King Songtsen Gampo, and then latterly the 8th century with King Trisen Detsen. Here, 7th and 8th centuries, the Buddha Dharma began to spread in Tibet proper. And then we had the appearance in Tibet of these great Indian Panditas, Dhammarakshita, Kamalashila, Guru Rinpoche. These are all the founders of the Tibetan Buddhism.
That's ne Dembachik Tan Yama Nyangwiching,
No.
the Turab Juvenanda, the Sevting,
Jill.
And the Tandangazo de Lamrim Sinidit, and the Church Bandi Disha Yangya, the Halama Chanju with an issue, and it gave that issue mix a color Javas and Kashmiri, Kashmiri Javu, Kaji, Konjo Tongana, Chung the Tonra. That day, Church Bandi Adisha, that Tendishu, that did Lujutus, then Chanans Jela, Church Bandi Adisha, Luju, Chanans lawyer, Yeshumugoche, the Ranjon raised a lawyer race, the Loshana degree, Lojus on Zanko Cotivora, and the Church Bandi Adisha, Pelfage, and show Halama, Ishi, Chanju, and Yarivashur, Danganzo, Perliata, Pug Mumba Pugita, Church. Nyamje da cholo mangbo shilip de shada inza ani pyogi mila da simla pembe church sungro chi isro simla pembe chura ne choji tu nyebu shu chongje ani chanju lamji de ma sa de dang da lamrim sa ge tanye de pejin tene da chongre dingela lamrim sa tanye de pejin yosam mar jina thanda da yorwa da lam gomya de yorde lamrim sa ge tanye de pejin yongda yo mar da de Church Bandi Dishage and Lamji, Chanju Lamji Drama, Ta Zeje and Pelada, Lamrim Seadi, Peja Lamrim, Lamji Rimba Seadi, Tama, Tandangan Zug, Tat Tawaro, Dire, that Yina Di turned over the Jumde Sunsha Yoga, dog turned a Jizin Chambagum Besonja, Mundo Jenda, Dode Jenda, Jula Matalata, to Zagi turned the Jima, Shame Gura, Jizandi. Pelaya that Lamrim Sag Tanya Yondande, Church Bandia Dishag Zeve, and Chamjulam Jitoma, Toch and Duxian and Machon Race Rata.
Right, so then from the inception of Buddha Dharma in Tibet, 7th and 8th century, of course it spread from those centuries, but around the 10th century, we found that the Buddha Dharma was beginning to degenerate in Tibet. So again, at the behest of these two practitioners, Chandrakirti and Yeshe, one of who I think, maybe from Kashmir, was put in prison. So one of those two was in prison and couldn't invite Atisha to come to Tibet. So the thought was to invite Atisha. Yeah. So one I think was an uncle and one was a nephew. Pala. One was a father and one was a son. So one had been put in prison and couldn't go and request Atisha personally, who was in the lander, to come to Tibet again to reinstate or restore the Buddha Dharma which had degenerated. So Chandrakirti, I think, Lama Yeshe, Nalanda Lapene.
말에 페요 말다 인디 디 낙졸로 자와다 디즈단 코란데 페게고 코란 페요 말다.
Okay. So there some translators were sent at the behest of Lama Yeshe and Chanchu to Nalanda to invite Atisha to go to Tibet to help reinstate the Buddha Dharma. This really pleased Atisha.
근데 chanjuwe Koran jeurwa ne Koran gi lozawa renje sangboda nakzo lozawa la soboteza ane nalenda la tanse mambukuje ne den
yeah, Ludang Dembe. So that king Yeshe he sent Rinchen Sangbo. Chanju sent Rinchen Sangbo to Natsolazawa to India with like the amount of the weight of a body in gold, as much gold as they could get, to invite Atisha back to Tibet. This really pleased Atisha because they said, please come to Tibet and teach the Buddha Dharma to benefit Tibet and the Tibetans. So they asked that request for Atisha. Now, up to this time, when we hear the phrase, the conventional phrase, Lam Rim, we wouldn't really say it was in Tibet at this stage, but it's really coming from the fact that Atisha composed a text called Lamp for the Path. And upon composing this text, at the request of these Tibetan kings and so forth, this text was composed. And then the term Lam Rim, or the graduated stages on the path to enlightenment, seems to have come from that time of the composition of that text. Of course, previously, what's essential in Buddha Dharma and coming through Maitreya, the emptiness and the path side of the teachings, was all in the Lam Rim, but not conventionally known as such.
다지난저 디 로르다 다랑종 좀 아디샤 남다디 다리 둔다디나 로그레 에서와다 말로 아니디 하마고나 제랑알 티어티 칙딘데 하마고나 알 티어틴디 라젤라.
Now, in terms of this historical account of Atisha, the source of these teachings, it's good if you can read that history in your free time. And if you're unsure about any of the words, just ask questions. But it's good to do that.
제가 다 루주 제바드즈나라다 니 조지반데한디샤 또 당부 다 네 배윤에 제도를 페라 똥아리 톨링스니들 강의 시부총도 벽에 챙겨요 말아 아니 벽바드즈 자게 마시 디 샵지신이 샵지세 자신이 샵지 당보다 룩소가던데 칼라 말아와체 두보쇼 두부 통해서는 장주센바 두보다 저 통말들레 치주디베 야고 제면도 야고 치토면도 내년 야고 치토면도 룩소가 저주 반대에 되셔 군주 미장 첨부직 하마고네 룩소가 다 깨하마고나 강에 쇼여서라 나 당부 내리디 강에까지 태성아 깨라 틀마 다 간저다 군주미 야고 지거도 네 저주 반대에 되셔라 룩소가 네 봐주고 마시 요보든지 요보나시 그냥 하고 말아 개발치 뭐다 라마든지 하고 말 치즈 좀좀 봤다 제네 아니 신도다야 네 라메다 티chen 게다 좀 차르면서 뭐마 당보베 요보나시로 제 수수 처와제 제 두스주도 로주도 조여다.
If you really read the extensive account of when Atisha first went to Tibet, he went to Nadi, like upper or central Tibet, and at that time it would have been very difficult for Atisha because Atisha did not speak Tibetan, neither did his attendants, and then of course the Tibetan people didn't speak the Indian language, so there was lots of difficult communications. They didn't know by sight that Atisha was this great pundit. They thought he might be fit to look after the animals, like that type of shepherd or cowherd. So he would have really struggled in that sense. It's like when I first came here, not knowing the language, it was really difficult for me. But it wasn't until Atisha became acquainted with his disciple Drom Tompa that he began to get well renowned as a great practitioner and the word spread.
어디지? 아니 다디네 들어 줍시다로 줍시나로와 아니 제르모신 페이지네 제르모신 아디 달 람든 자와시샤시제네 자주 람림 쳔모세데 람림 딩사 람림 충우세 아디오간라사 줄루신다게 람림 고든데 요르델레다 먼저 단다다 제르모신기 윤진바르와제단데 네게다 제르모신기 데와제션 요데 단다 베제다야데 네 제르모신제 들어 줍시나는 제레 제르모신 남다디 로tum나 야고요르 지난주 로나 야고요르스라
Now, of course, we come to the source of the Lamrim, Lama Tsongkhapa, who appeared in the author of the text we're studying, who appeared in the 14th century, and he based his composition on Atisha's text, Lamp for the Path. But of course, Lama Tsongkhapa composed various lengths of those teachings, the Great Lamrim, Middle, and the Small One. There are many other composers of Lamrim teachings, but our lineage here stems directly from Lama Tsongkhapa. So in that light, it's very good if we read Lama Tsongkhapa's biography, his history, and know it. That would be good.
다 먼저 최콩즈 먼저 체화된 사데 subject 마동즈지 또 뒤치 다 저랑도 만차디 로규디 로야래다 로규 스스로나 야고여라.
Right. So that is that first point, showing the greatness of the author in order to establish the authenticity of the teaching of the Dharma. Now, it's really good if we can read these bios of these great masters. That's in our hand.
다드네 니와 당할 구하기에 추기 채워된 것이죠.
나릴라.
다 디나라 다 투주시라면도 와다 디나라메 subject 시에는 게 subject 시노 템바든지 김에도 손은 시와디 니제치모 랑가스도 사시도 어디틱스 시에는 와네 네 베진 편연 디간을 편연 링거로 와추 오늘 람림 먼저 다 람림디 니에네 먼저 편도 가려요래 와 어디 시에나 다 람림 추 근데 제업레 아니 제르모신다 데나마 좀 된데다 초지반데 아디샤다 아니 제르모신 람림 제브레스 다 람림딜라네 먼저 대퇴가 있는데 편도 가려요래 와도 두 삼단시나 디 녀바 있는 간줄 편도 가려요래서 그래서 디 삼단바 있나 아니 디돌라 니제치 뭐 랑가스도 와사디 가도네 아니 데시샤나 와서 놀라 편연 세션들이 다죠 이 subject 머신 라고 말해 건서 고투투다 네 최대 와다
니빠디라니까
당할 구어지에 채워된 바서 채워진 그 제주에서는 편연이 시고다.
Yes. So the second point is that by showing respect to the instruction, one sees the greatness of the Dharma teaching. So this is really saying that what we have to know here. So what is the benefit of us studying the Lamrim? The Lamrim that is sourced from Atisha and Lama Tsongkhapa. If we listen, if we practice, if we study, what are the benefits of doing so?
나네 내가 편연다 다도 편연이셔라.
There are benefits that are more immediate and more long-term benefits too, temporal and ultimate.
다 단다 알아서 단다 카도 무엇 편연 가려서나 당보 람림다 베트 subject 망보다 지금 망보지도 와.
Do.
이 당보서는 알아서 나제 당가 십신규 세저로. 디 맞아 그래. 나제 무엇 나제데마 매워자. 나제데 매워서 계속 쉬어라.
Yep.
나제게 가서 셈바마지와 당 강에 망보 쉬지 소고도 알아.
The first thing is that, the temporal benefit is that there are all of these headings and topic outlines, and at the moment we don't know them. So that sense of not knowing is good for our pride because it will bring us down. If the mind is full of pride, then the mind is really uneasy. There are lots of defects of pride.
And the neda lamrim ginde mangboji jachim sim sanje gomba top to dan sheyunde. The young around the soje mezije pesha soya na lega jorwa. Lega de be migyan tungdu shivji but haguro that did that nega gida jik pesha soya that did delel haga jik du sa jinjang sim data. Suzumi jachimbo jik soju yorwa. Jawa dijigo mayimbe or danga 차시 배 유릉복 차시 딩야직도 디 단대기 세대 배샤로스 칸라테 되네 뭐라 놈로 아니 이제 칼라사 디치고 많이 데 거르바다 디치고 많이 봐 디치고 많이 배 델레 하가지 가 지야도스 봐 단당아 세상 디 하고 그러다 디 하고는 somebody 갸쳐로 somebody 갸쳐로 그러고
Now also the view of this overview of the goal of Buddhahood is very vast, and sometimes our view is very small, very temporary. So here we're saying that it's not just about this life, it's not just about one's work, about putting petrol in the car, about having food, about having wages, not just this life. The view, or the long-term view here, is the goal of Buddhahood. So we should think like that.
And today, that Lamrim do story and that dinner la keja mangbochi le and that. Susu anzo susu la and Ludin ya bochi yo hago ra. And they sim ya sing to yo ya ra. And ji dang we ne zu so ra leg go da de mangbochi le and dang one ji kare na 유진 로 질러 되네 중대로 봐. 유진 몽보실은 좀 뭐지 단다. 즉 미직 서셔에서 되네 많이 봐. 수수 깔래 잡나? 대베네주 가리네.다. 대베네주 차차랑 아주 주어단토에요 말했어. 마음방 알아야 야부치야 된 알아 라고라도 소도도 시행고. 대시행 보이나? 아주 대베네주 몽보지 그날다. 아니 그런도 매진나라다 다음에 용구여라 더 상만 차차차로 차산조된 건도 주어당 두고 말해 디토를 삼로 망보 땅 심대 망보 체네 펜도민도 델레 땅 알아 단당 알아 샘바딩원에다 다다에 개와치야 가는데 망보라다 야고 용야 치디다 개와치고도 밀라 펜도 치고도 삼바상보 치고도 더 삼바 레비나 아니 매제 저 뭐가나라 미 펜도다 저 뭐는 뭐스 펜도도 알아 뭐스 펜도 쇼요스 남림 거네시는 남림 그 다가라래다 쇼직 펜도고요스 일레 겨치모 파샤시스라
When one studies the Lamrim, one comes to know things. One comes to know how to stay with the body and mind and how to comport well. One comes to know about the law of causality, the law of karma. One comes to know that one's problems are not made by someone else. One also comes to see that the past is gone and one should let that go. You cannot change the past. So you learn to be in the present moment, and to the extent that you can't change the past, the future is in your own hand. So then what about with that, with the future being now in the present moment, how about cultivating kind heart? How about cultivating altruism? So just there in this life, there is tremendous benefit. Leave alone even thinking of future lives, what we can do in the present moment.
어디로와다 내가 블라네 당당한저 저 지조나라야 강연들의 뭔고 여러다 미디 지불하고 서로 당 론리네스로 다다 스트레스 인더 덤버시 뭔고 여러다
야
어디서 릭도저다 뭔고지야 미신다지가 아 서비스로 싫어 어다 레군나는 레가디 채는 알아 동에데 총수 미디님도는 나가디 총수 오늘 채는 예 그정만 내려와 레렌 탐지 찍었다 그걸 가진 쳐고 수수 딩만이 수수 레 맞다 수수 레 임바사고 데부 수수 미라다 간다라 디레미지기 아니 미신다기 디고산조 수수 미기요나 아 미신다기 겨산조 된 건조 미기라 아니 산조 좀 된대지 겨사지 산제지 고만 토야 된 건조로 미기로 안조 민초로 안조 민토구면도 와대로 디 가때서는 다 수수 직레게 대화직당 교강마당 된데게 레게 대화직레 때네 단대게 강해단 담아디고 용대와 수수 교강마지 야고 채울 때네 단다 야고 용대와 데레 메시지게 수수 란라랄레어 메시지게 근데 지담이 규단 젠테스테다 용거와 이나다 드비미야데 수수 갈레잠조 수수를 미고 메시지게 디나 랜데세드 매차도고라 디와요 말레스데 고이니즈르 디나 간주디 이제요 말레스 먼저 강에 가리는 미신다 소요로지 야 전자래 약보로지나 수수 제위 독자로 오시는 미체르 디 리그바 따다 디그면더라 계시 누가디 미신다 제나는 수수 야가데 미신다 제로 되네로 아니 먼저 미신다데 욕보서로 차로다 진짜 레몬도 하잖아 야가데 수수 체인 라게나 누가데 수수 체인 라고라다 간다라 제가 데그 뭐니 주당 게로도 아데 람림나네 어두즈 시행 거래서 근데 가리나 수수단 대화에 된교당 수수 레렌 탐지 찍었다세 수수 랑진지 쳇타와 단진 쳇타와 아니 가드이나 수수메시 미신달라 솔마다마 되게네 직직고 loneliness 다 스트레스 anxiety 요 정말 자와드네 용고래서 두즈 상마다 람림나나 어디 두즈 매우서야기 탑람다 심 베다 제보 또 빼야고 요래서 렌데가 남셔야 되고랑 빼 편도 그래서 신베이나
So therefore, temporarily in society, that we experience problems. People experience a lot of problems in society. There's loneliness, stress, depressions, and so forth. And oftentimes, we might tend to think that they're caused by others. Or I can't work with that person in the office. They give me such a hard time. We seem to think that these problems are coming from out there. But as I've mentioned previously, drive all blames into one and meditate on the great kindness of all. Here, these two are asking us to reflect on our own karma causes of why we might be experiencing difficulties. So drive all blames into one when you experience, things that are difficult, and then meditating on the kindness of all, so the virtues and non-virtues. Because quite simply, we have to start to accept responsibility in terms of driving all blames into one of the things that we've done in the past. If it were true that we could get the virtues, for example, from the Buddhas would have transferred their virtues to us ages ago, but it doesn't work like that. And it's the same with removing these difficulties of driving blames into the self-cherishing thought. So the past karmas is that we experience, the virtues and non-virtues, are really about something that we ourselves created, the non-virtues. And in this light, we need to think on causes and conditions. Now, the causes and conditions in the law of causality is not something that can be controverted. You can't just reverse that process of experiencing the suffering of non-virtue or experiencing the good of the good things you've done. And what tends to happen is we tend to do the opposite. We tend to think if things are going well, I did it. But if things are not going well, they did it. When in actual fact, it's the other way around. The good things come from them and the bad things come from us. So therefore, this is all about understanding the mechanism of causality in terms of, okay, so what's the real source of our difficulties? Self-cherishing, no? The fact that we cherish ourselves over and above others, that and ego clinging. And really, in terms of removing those two sources of suffering, that Geshe mentioned, like drive all blames into one, there's no better than the Lamrim to remove that. There's no better than studying the valid path of the Lamrim in terms of understanding cause and effect.
어다디 인디네 타도게 편라 아니 니주 첨보스다 또직 되자다 셰단다 콘로다 도도 상호파 가제 네 가도야 근데 연구열에 대자마세 아니 수수길래 찬주그 셈게 다 람린 고메나 찬주그 셈게 아 람지레 버디제다 야 파림도다 요버디제 신 디신 수수길래 께나 다 산제 고마 타베야 돼 연구열에 타도게다 편연 레스와
And the long-term benefit, of course, the great compassion, getting rid of these invalid, disturbing thought obscurations, hatred, anger, desirous attachment, and so forth. They will be removed. And then further along the path, one meditates, and one generates bodhicitta. The bodhicitta, of course, being the cause of Buddhahood. And our goal, of course, long-term is Buddhahood. These are the long-term benefits of studying and practicing Lamrim.
제단다 닝지 첨부 알레당은 산제 고마 탐나다 다 찬주 심지는 닝지 첨부 줄을 제베 이나로 봐 닝지 첨부 줄을 제베 이나 아니 배제 단도로전 시제 냠렌데 집 딱다다 베디 카율라 연구에서 가나다가 팬다고 저와체와 신이 담바 따오셨어. 수수 메일파 팬도쇼 지체선조디 수수라츠 never gave you don't know condosagra. Ninji Chimboyana, that is still never gained. That oh, Nangama Papendo and the Cherry, the immediate young woman do love you passage and Tando never gave you a beta, Savaniam Lamneda, Parabala Dunga, and Ninji Jetra, that in the end that they don't give a in and give a chod you in some. Today you want to wizard, Ninji Chimboyana. The Ninji Chambo Mana Pageant to the Kaku inside. Tende samlo je ngolojong si je ge tsik tu manja yeseta lang ta mo khorang yu le chanju sim yo yin zang khorang ge nyamlen she de je ma sung yong yo ro che za de tsik tu zo da nuwa chen bo shyo je ro che za ngong zo da zen sang da yong ma de le da ti zu da wo ro ji ya che tu bi ne 간다 당보 제 수수게 알아서 전화도 망보지 라고 요랑 that's how us know was emotion right emotion
yeah
와 알아서 단다 그래 먼저 심지 신원의 주 심유몽의 신원의 주 유모사에 대다 초 안에 디도 당뇨 망보지다 되자다 시단도 콘로당가 제다 타도된 레윤데 네 디의 신원의 주 네 디왕은 먼저 동해용데 거라 그래서 닝지 전부 요나 아니 emotion 컨트롤 치도고 열다 미페조게 가즈 수수 도제 제시하위네 콘도서 유파샤 단도 심나라야 아니 지가와당 대와당 된데 숙체로 돼야 된대 연구 여러 와셔다 저도 아니 람링이다 팬 유나면나 레스타 저러와
Of course, the great compassion is the direct cause of Buddhahood coming from the bodhicitta. These longer term goals, and then it's very well essentially explained in verses like the 8 verses of mind training, isn't it, by Langritampa, this benefiting intention. So the verse that says, if someone in whom I have placed great hope and helped a lot in turn harms me, I shall see that person as the spiritual friend. So, in someone, this happens, doesn't it? It is someone who we've helped, but then they harm us back. And as a result of us not having great compassion, we get angry at them because we helped them, but instead of them repaying us with their kindness, they get angry at us and harm us. Conversely, if you have great compassion, that doesn't happen. If you have helped someone a long period, and then in return they harm you, you actually have great compassion for the harmer. And in this sense, that harmer becomes the spiritual friend, like the one who teaches you patience. This becomes the best teacher, the best spiritual friend. And this is how the yogis such as Langritampa practice. Now, he composed these verses from his own direct experience. And in that light, these verses have tremendous power. And we can't quite practice like that at the moment, but we can train and we can try. Because we're always talking about our feelings. How do you feel? How are your emotions? Of course. But in our case, what happens is our minds are in turn controlled by afflictive emotions, other-powered. So those negative emotions that overtake us are these feelings of the afflicted mental states. Yeah, we have aversion, we have hatred, we have anger, we have jealousy, all of that. And as a result, we suffer. But what happens is when you have the great compassion, you have control over your mind, so that if someone says something bad to you or harms you, not only do you not get angry, but your sense of their well-being just grows even stronger, and your concern for them and your mental state is even happier.
닝지 공무다 닝지도 저래 다 닝지 고면랑 저 주jen로 와다 기생의 군대 남샤데 곰 삼다야 들어봐 수수 연용기 미도스 다 네 튼도도 수수를 거린 첨부 인바디다 네 뒤준에 가도이나 라보다 닝지게 줄어 봐라 닝지 주마고는 저 닝지 연구 말아 아니 닝지디 다 전주생구 줄에 돼요 와셔다 도스레 지기 직차라고 열어 나 개체슈 당뭐 군대가 남샤데 당저 무슨 곰 자야죠 디 준대가나 자고 그래 아니 데다 다리 둔다디나 나라 네 저랑죠 곰 자야랑 저한테 저는 this is Chile web and it's a trouble tomotang, Pama Pinjatang, Gigan Gidu to Sama, Suzuka Dinchimbo, Suzupendo Chimbo, Tezama said, Lama Zongawada, and Church Bandia Dishada, Tomashajitu, that is Zugadin Latin, to Zugadin in Latin Digital Chungsha. Or the day I sent by Jachimbolia Trojani, Gadin tin to be enough. Dia we rest after Gomja Zo, there was the day on Gomja Japtum Nasra, Jab shows that Japtum Namalashi. Dundragic the Tigala Samnotang shows.
So now, very good to meditate, very good to reflect like this. We should be meditating on great compassion as our practice and put effort into that. Great compassion is the main point, and we're going to do that meditation on great compassion in the light of causality, cause and effect, meaning that we're going to use the people in our immediate environment, those to our left, those to our right, the animals. I often mention that just by observing the animals around us, the people that are working around us, these are like the cause, the very cause upon which we will generate such a great compassion. Of course, compassion doesn't come about by no cause. It is causally related. And we talk about generating the uncontrived heart of bodhicitta. Well, that's not going to come without that great compassion, which in turn is dependent on those in our immediate environment. This means, who are you close to? Your parents, your friends, your teachers, your loved ones, your family, all of those. Think on their kindness and then try and make it very vast. Think how kind the lamas were, the lineage lamas, to bring us these teachings, Atisha, Lama Tsongkhapa. So when we start to begin our reflections on great compassion, we should think like that, and we should meditate like that during the week.
I know the Lugut is a lot of Naya, we are lawyer, Yavulo to oh, that Namdat this lot of Naya, we are restaurant,
it's good. It's good if we can read the historical accounts, the biographies of the great masters, and you can find these texts. It's good to read about Atisha, Pandit Atisha, Lama Tsongkhapa, Shakyamuni Buddha. Try and read the life stories. No, it seems like we don't all have the text here tonight. So next week, bring it, and we can all recite it together. No, every week we can recite one round.
Yeah, we will.
That's a good.
What day shall?
We'll dedicate now.